Good morning and how for day. The Committee on General Government Operations, Appropriations and Housing is now called to order. For the record, today is Monday, June 13, and the time now is 9:05. Notice for this budget hearing were disseminated via email to all senators and all main media broadcasting outlets. First public notice was on June 3rd, followed by June 10th. Committee will now hear Bill 276-36 COR, Committee on Rules, by the request of the I Maga'hågan Guåhan, the Governor of Guam, in accordance with the Organic Act of Guam. An act making appropriation for the operation of the executive branch of the Governor of Guam for fiscal year ending September 30, 2023, making other appropriations and establishing miscellaneous and administrative provisions relative to the Department of Land Management. I'd like to acknowledge my colleagues that have joined us this morning. We have Speaker Therese Cherlai, who's the Oversight Chair of Land Management, and we have Senator Sabina Perez. Those testifying on Bill 276-36 relative to the Department of Land Management are invited to the panel. We have Mr. Bora. The general rules of this budget hearing shall be as follows. Written testimony shall be submitted to the committee. Please provide my legislative staff with written testimony for photocopying. Testimony may be read, and empty testimony should be summarized to about 5 minutes. But Mr. Bora, you have pretty much all morning, and I know you won't need it all. Those testifying will be allowed to present oral testimony. Once you're done, please remain in the room for questions or for additional testimony as may be desired by members of the committee. Question and testimony shall be confined to the agenda, which is the Department of Land Management's budget. Personal inference as to the character or the motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. Any violation of this general rule of conduct will result in removal from the budget hearing room. Proper form and decorum shall be practiced by all present in the public hearing room for this proceedings. Individuals who fail to maintain proper form and decorum will be restricted from providing additional oral testimony and will be removed from the room. When you speak, please make sure that the microphone is on and that you speak into the microphone. Other questions may be submitted to the committee for submission for the department's response. Please state your name and title for the record. I now ask the panel to please rise as the Sergeant at Arms will swear you in for your testimony.
Please raise your right hand. Under penalty of perjury, do you all affirm that any and all information you provide today, whether it be verbally, electronically, and in writing, be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God. Yes. Mr. Chair, you may proceed. Done your oath.
Thank you, Sergeant at Arms. We'll now begin to discuss Bill 276-36 COR relative to the Department of Land Management. Mr. Bora, please, and if you could please introduce your staff.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Senator San Agustin, committee members, Senator Sabina Perez, and Speaker Therese Cherlai, who happens to be also Land Management's Oversight Chair. Thank you very much for the opportunity to appear before your committee to present the FY23 budget for the Department of Land Management. To my right is my Administrative Services Officer, Virginia Flores, Jean. Land Management has a large prior year's obligation. The large prior year's obligation, which is very important, is the retirement benefits for a former employee who was deployed, and while on deployment, Land Management was not paying its share of the retirement contribution, which to this date has reached approximately $180,000. The majority of our budgeted supplies and equipment for the fiscal year have been purchased. The Department of Land Management has no capital outlay projects, and a budget or expenditure plan has been prepared for the federal assistance funds that the department has allocated. This is in the form of a TAP grant, a technical assistance program under DOI of $309,000. All of it has been obligated, but a review last week shows that approximately $9,000 can be reprogrammed. At this time, the department the true needs of the department to meet its core missions and objectives. However, the department has had major personnel changes in the last 3 years, which we were unable to address during COVID. The department has, we have filled our vacancies up to 6, except for 6, but we have 3 new fills and we are pending 3. The department has received $1.4 million in American Rescue Funds allocation, and the department is using the majority of those funds for limited-term employees as well as survey equipment. The department is aware of the appropriation reserve, and the department's plans for those reserves are to use it for a shortfall that we may have in personnel salaries and benefits. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And we're open for any questions that they may have. The department is asking for a budget of $3.4 million. The last year, it was basically the same, 3.418. So we are actually mirroring last year's budget. But like I said, in the last several months, and the last 3 years actually, we've had some major personnel changes. For example, we've had 2 employees that have passed away. We have had 5 retirements. We have had 3 separations. And we have had 1 transfer to another department. In addition, a retirement profile of our department shows we have 32 employees. 22 of them are eligible for retirement, 11 by service, and 11 by service, I'm sorry, 21, 11 by service and 10 by age. And of course, these are employees that have been there for a while and have the institutional knowledge to help the department. So out of 32 employees, we have 21 that are eligible for retirement. We have indications of 2 more retirements that will be happening in the next 12 months. That is our biggest challenge in our personnel. In terms of supplies and equipment, we are doing fine in supplies and equipment. A large part of our equipment need was filled by the TAP grant. That's the $309,000, and that is basically going to be used for the renewal of our outdated computer equipment and a recabling of the entire Department of Land Management offices. We're converting from Cat6 cable, rather Cat5 cable to Cat6. And our equipment that we recently purchased, our TAP grant, has it's been installed. What we are waiting for now is the cabling of the department. We're still operating with some of the old computers and some of the new ones, but for the most part, the big part of the project from the TAP grant next is the cabling to recable the department. In that TAP grant, we also have some money for the maintenance of the software at land management, and that's about $90,000 for the maintenance of the land web. All the other items in the budget, Senator, Mr. Chairman, are pretty much the same as the last year. We did provide a sort of a summary to show by the various sections the increase or decrease in the sections, but for the most part, Senator, our budget is the same as last year. But somewhere along the line in the next few months, we would like a review of our staffing pattern on it. For example, the department only has 1 IT position, and unfortunately, that IT person passed away, but before he passed away, he was on an extended medical leave, so we had some challenges there. We have recently hired a new IT person, but that's in our LTA, a limited term appointment for 1 year. We were not able to hire under the previous budget, so We have that, and the original position, for example, that was in IT was a computer systems analyst. OTEC has informed us that based on the problems that land management has, or the renovation of the computer system that land management has, what land management needs is a tele-networking coordinator rather than just a computer systems analyst. So that's what we hired, but we were only able to hire that under the limited term process. There was a inquiry from a committee member, senators, concerning the land management building, and I've provided a response.
Mr. Boer, we're having some technical difficulties on broadcasting, so we're going to go ahead and recess until the folks get it back online so that we make sure the people of Guam hear what you're stating.
Sure.
All right? The committee has now returned from recess after receiving some broadcasting issues. Mr. Boer, if you can please continue, please. I'm not too sure where you left off, but I have a feeling most of it was caught. Now, unfunny, Mike.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe I ended when I started out concerning the letter from Senator Taitagui, and I said I'm responding through the committee. You members have copies of that letter. It's actually concerning the land management building, and it concerns, of course, money that we have. And I'll just go down and all this information, the monetary information, that's being reported to the legislature on a monthly basis. But I think the most important question in the letter is the number 5, which is what is the status of the construction of the new building and land management's plan to move the development forward. The status of the construction of the new Department of Land Management building, as it is called in statute, actually the Department of Land Management building, it's on hold. The landowner, which is the Chamorro Land Trust Commission, not land management, the landowner of that property where the land management building is going up, called that by statute is actually a property that belongs to the Chamorro Land Trust. The landowner has been informed of the discovery of human remains on the property. The commission has been informed of that, and I believe after the Chamorro Land Trust Commission reviews that information that I gave them, it is up to them now to decide a way forward. But statute says land management build a land management building on that property. So I believe the legislature should probably be a timely review of the enabling legislation to see if there are any adjustments that need to be made. We haven't done anything at all with that account, or we haven't done anything at all really with that project, other than review the previous reports and looked to see if there was another agency that was legally allowed to take over that project, but no, it's a land management obligation.
All right, sir. I'll leave that to the oversight chair, and if she needs any assistance, we'll assist accordingly. Now, you mentioned earlier you're looking at a prior year outstanding. You're able to take care of that within your budget?
No, no.
Okay.
Actually, when we came in, there were two employees that had outstanding retirement obligations that were not paid by the Department of Land Management. And this is basically due that when they were deployed to their military duties, Land Management, for whatever reason, wasn't paying the retirement contribution part. That other employee had a retirement contribution shortfall of about $25,000. And within our budget, last year's budget, we were able to take care of that. This one, though, at $180,000 is kind of tough to fit into a budget.
Okay, so basically we would have to add that on to this budget right now, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So we'll just add, instead of 3,418,000, we'll add the appropriate amount. If we can just get the letter from you so we can add it accordingly, okay? And if there's any other issues that deals in funding, feel free to communicate that to your oversight and myself, and we'll figure out a way how to take care of you, because I know, I would really hope that the 21 potential retirees don't all leave the same time, and that you're able to meet the needs for the people of Guam in the area of your department. And we'll figure out what we need to do to take care of the department. I also like to recognize that we're joined with our colleague, Senator Joanne Brown. Madam Speaker, do you have any questions of the panel?
Sure, and thank you, Mr. Director Borja, for your presentation. Thank you, Jean, for being here. Just to reiterate, so did you say 21 out of 22 employees are eligible for a retirement?
21 out of 32.
Oh, okay.
We have 32 employees. 21 out of 32.
That's concerning, yes. So I'm glad you're raising that today. And in order to have continuity, if these employees retire, you need to hire and train.
And that's the personnel issue that I'm talking about, as Senator. We don't want these people retiring and then hiring somebody new to take in that job. If at all possible, we want it to overlap.
Yes.
And maybe the funding for that overlap might be from the anticipated revenue increase that we're looking at from the Land Survey Revolving Fund. We're tracking right now at, I believe, about $350,000 more than last year. That's what we're tracking. We still have a few more months to go. Where that goes, up or down, very hard for me to predict the economy. But so far, we are tracking in the Land Survey Revolving Fund revenue. It looks like we may, right now we are over $350,000. So by the end of the fiscal year, I hope to be $500,000 to $600,000 on that.
Oh, that would be great. I was going to ask you why the anticipated special fund revenue is less than the current year's special fund revenues, and why that revenue is going down. But you think it will go back up?
Actually, the revenue reports that we have, I think the latest up to date is May, right? I believe, yeah. When we can provide that to you, that shows our collections.
All right, and so that's pretty much the Land Survey Revolving Fund?
That's correct.
And that's from fees that you charge?
That's from fees, documentary tax. You go in and record a document, we charge you $25 for that, and then a prorated amount on the amount of the transaction. That's where we get our money. And of course, this money, actually for the great majority, it comes from title companies, it comes from the banks, it comes from consultants, Of course, it comes from the general public, but that's where our greatest source is. So we have a very, very important partner in the title companies, 3 of them.
All right, great. So I'm glad to hear. That's what my concern was, is why are those fees going down? That's what it looks like here, but okay, so good news is that they're not going down. They should be more than FY22, FY21.
That's correct.
That's great. Okay, good. And then, regardless of the appropriation from the special funds that we make, you are able to utilize that fund, whatever's brought in?
The Land Survey Revolving Fund, yes, through appropriation.
So we have to appropriate
You have to.
the additional amounts that you are anticipating.
Yes.
Okay. And you said you have an expenditure plan for the ARP funds that you received, because the report shows not expended or encumbered 695,000.
And that was the date, right?
If we could just
That
get
was of the submitted date, yes. The ARPA funds.
it was submitted what?
When that report that you have there now was submitted in March, probably?
Yes.
Yeah, that was what it was showing, but now we have developed our plans for the ARPA funds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we just get a copy of that when it's available? A copy of the ARPA spending plan and for your agency. And you said you're going to use it for LTAs and for survey equipment, right?
Actually, for the ARPA funds, to give you a more accurate amount, personnel services, including salaries and benefits, out of the 1.4 million, 871. Supplies, 5,000. Equipment, 30,000. And yeah, total operations and like, and we can give this to you, of course.
Okay, thank you. So the LTAs that you're hiring are actual employees that you need permanently?
Yes, but we, of course, cannot hire them permanently.
Okay, because of the budget.
You're
So you're
right.
trying to use ARP to have that overlap a little bit, and then,
Yes, and let's take, for example, the Land Survey Division. Governor of Guam only has one surveyor, and of course, the support staff that he has are the engineering aides and the engineering technicians on that. In that particular division, we've had one retirement, two transfers. One transfer to DPW, one to GPA, and one retirement. And these, of course, are all, you know, the higher techs in that. So for that particular land survey division, what we're doing is we're picking up approximately 6 engineering aides. And where do these guys come from? All of them are actually students at UOG, and some of them, most of them, have attended the GCC boot camp for engineering. When this administration came in, the surveyor, chief surveyor, Paul Santos, worked with GCC to develop a program, sort of like a program to feed engineering needs of the Department of Land Management, as well as private. That's our concern, is we train these people, they might go to private. But all of those LTAs, limited term appointment employees in the Land Survey Division have engineering backgrounds or are presently attending University of Guam, tracking towards an engineering degree. So we're very happy with that, but that was only possible because, you know, our chief surveyor went and set up that program with GCC, got people to go to class, and then we have this opening where we might take them. That's unlike the records division. We have trouble recruiting for land abstractor ones, which is the bottom level. The reason why we're having problems recruiting is number one, it needs 2 years of experience in real estate. You know, for an entry-level position, I believe that I think is a little bit high, 2 years. And that's some of the issues that I'll bring up with our chair to see if we can lower that from 2 years to 1 year for that entry-level position. There are a lot of land abstractors, but they're at the private companies, and their salary level is a little bit higher than Gov Guam, and also they're in more or less a permanent position, whereas right now at land management, if we were to hire land abstractor ones, there's no list, by the way, at DOA. We started a list. We asked DOA to open up recruitment for land abstractor ones, but we're finding out that we are getting applicants, but they don't meet that 2-year entry level requirement on that. And of course, you know, the positions we have, at least the ones we have now, are limited term appointments. So we want to work with the legislature to see if we can make those positions permanent. And of course, that's a little bit more of an attraction to the applicants.
sure, and I support that change. It seems that that is a trainable job, that entry level, that if you can train them well, then you should be able to do that, as
Yeah,
opposed to
unless-
requiring the experience prior to them getting there. All right, and that, would of course help with any backlogs and title or that type of thing.
Yes, you know, Speaker, when I came in, there was a backlog of about 6,000 certificates of title application throughout the years. I can't really give you a number on how much of a dent we've made on that, but there were some real critical ones. And there were probably some critical ones where the department may have made a mistake on those certificates of title, and those are very serious. You've probably heard of the cases going on, or that a couple of cases going on like that. And in that particular case, for that particular department, that division only has one deputy civil registrar. The director is the civil registrar, but you know, the actual work being done is actually the deputy civil registrar. So we only had one. So if that person goes out on leave, sick leave, or an extended leave, then you have a backlog on that. So what we're trying to do at land management is create another DCR. It's almost as a check and balance to the other DCR, as well as a backup if the guy needs to go on vacation or has serious medical issues, or the family has medical issues and he has to take leave, you know, then we have a problem. But that one we're creating with DOA. We've had to do the position description questionnaire. So that one's along the way, but again, that's a position that doesn't exist at land management right now.
Okay, great. And how many surveys do you, and would you estimate were done in FY22? It's not over yet, 4 more months, but, and how many do you expect to accomplish in FY23?
Well, the survey division actually has 2 jobs. Number one is the review of survey maps from private surveyors. Those we can quantify with a number, you know, and I think in the budget proposal, it has the metrics of how much we expected to do last year and how much we expect to do this year. But the survey division has those 2 major functions. Number one, of course, is the review of these maps coming in.
Right.
And secondly is survey requests by the government. Sometimes we survey private property for government information, but most of the time we survey government lands and like that. Surveying of private property may include someone who has a problem with the easements,
Right.
think that there's an encroachment or a misalignment, and land management can do those surveys. Some of them are quite complicated, and in all of these requests for survey of easements for private property or from other agencies, we actually do a cost factor. You know, we don't charge them, but we do have a cost factor on that. And some of these surveys that are being requested by mayors or other agencies are quite complex and take quite a bit of time, you know, to do. It's not a 1 day or a 1 week job, you know. So how many have we done in that type of situation? I would say probably, and I would say less than 10 of surveying government lands for other government agencies. How many maps have we reviewed? I can't give you really a number. I think normally, I think in a given year, it's anywhere from 100 to 150. Can you check
All right.
on our budget?
And what about land registrations? Are you actively pursuing those?
Land registration, yes, we are pursuing it. We've done one during COVID times, kind of hard to schedule court hearings on that, and we have 3 on the burner right now to do it. And of course, the land registration cases are done, the filing part, the legal part, by the Office of the Attorney General. We have an attorney assigned to us. And then, of course, on the mapping part, it's actually land management that surveys that. We have quite a number of properties that have been surveyed, but not taken through land registration. The great majority of those unregistered lands are actually Chamorro Land Trust properties.
Yeah,
So if we register these properties, it's the Chamorro Land Trust that, you know, benefits from the end on that. And yeah, that's correct. And so we are working with the land trust because they're the ones that are in charge of the service. You know, when you register property, you have your lot here, you have to provide notice and service to the surrounding landowners, and land trust has taken that up. So it's kind of like a joint effort, but you know, for land management, I wouldn't say that there's nothing in it for us, but we're actually doing it for the land trust, for their inventory.
All right. Okay, because I've asked them that as well, but your numbers sound very low. There's no other government land, I guess, that you are pursuing land registrations for?
Oh, yes. The two that I mentioned are just the ones that have cases already filed on them.
Okay.
But I think it's, I think for the land trust, I think it's 70 lots,
No, they have a
comprising
list.
of 2,000 acres.
Right, I'm talking about separate from their list. Do you have a list?
Oh, of unregistered property? No,
Yes.
that's being developed. I've always said this, Senator, that the government doesn't know what it has.
That's correct.
And with the implementation and the furthering of the Forest Legacy Act, we are now beginning to go out into these, up into the hills, if you may, and check out these properties where the government is a claimant, and then proceed to prepare the maps and the, like that. Like,
Right,
so-
that's what I'm asking
Yeah,
about,
yeah.
because outside of the Chamorro Land Trust, I think you do have jurisdiction over other properties, or other parts of the government has jurisdiction over other properties, and yeah, I was asking if those are being pursued, the
Yeah.
registration. The reason I'm asking is because there's still speculation out there that the government's not being diligent on registering its own property, and therefore, somehow it's allowing adjacent landowners to,
Encroach
Yes.
softly.
yes,
Yes, I understand, Senator, and you do have a point on that. At the beginning of, I believe in 2019, the Department of Land Management is actually required by law to notice the other agencies, I believe 65 agencies. We sent out letters to them. What do you have? What do you need? And what can you return back, And out of 65 agencies, I believe 14 responded. But there is I don't know how many acres. There is a lot of acreage out there that is unregistered, and you are right, Senator Speaker. I don't think the government is really diligent enough in doing this. Now, in our budget here that we have, we've only put down 2. For land registration surveys. Those are, like I said, a survey is kind of hard, especially up in the hills. Mobilizing to survey a lot up in the hills in Umataq is not the same as mobilizing to survey a lot in Agagna. So that's why there's 2. For the land trust, we do have a list of those lots that are not registered under the inventory. And in general, for the government, the project that Bureau of Statistics and Plans and Department of Agriculture is doing for the Forest Legacy Act, it's really ferreting out those lands that are unregistered. As recently as 2 months ago, Agriculture wanted a map of this lot because they want to tell the hunters that they can go there and hunt. We informed them that it's unregistered land, They said, yeah, but it said government land. I said, it's government land claimed, but it's not registered. So if you take somebody to court and say you're in government land and like that, you may not be. So yes, that is a...
all right, and finally, the online access to land management records. I know that that was available in the past to a limited degree, and that some of this may have been available to title companies, perhaps, but I'm wondering about public access in general. I know that some of the maps were made available through a program. I don't remember the name. I think it was a BSP program. But what about, we have talked about this before, and allowing access to the public.
Access to land management record is basically in 2 types, two ways. Access through to land management records when you are in the building, when you are on GGWAN, we're processing about 5 applications a day. We did have a backlog of applications to access the website during COVID, but those are slowly being transmitted to OTEC. I believe last week we probably submitted 25 on it. We are asking though now for a little bit more security, at least a picture of your, driver's license or passport or something. Before it was, you write on the application, submit it in, the registrar approves it, I approve it, goes down to OTEC, and sometimes we can't even read who that guy is, you know, if we wanted to track. We are working with OTEC, and OTEC has agreed that we're going to really shut down the system overnight, hopefully, and make people reapply again. We have people on, we don't know, let's accept, who has access to our website. We don't have a list of people that are accessed. The other part of the access really is the one that people really want. They want to be able to sit down on a Sunday night in their house, research land management records, and then go do something the next day if they have to. That we do not have available at this point. In the public library, there are about, I believe, 10 computers. 9 of them are dedicated to the 3 title companies, 3 computers each. 1 of them is dedicated to the public. And with the renewal of the computers that we have there at Land Management, we're hoping to add another 3 for the public use in the Department of Land Management. So you do have 2 parts to this access to land management records. One is if you are in the building, that really access is no problem. We have customer service that might help you. But the one that people really want is to be able to sit at home, and right now that's not really possible, and that's OTEC, that you know, for whatever reason. And it's basically a security reason on it.
Are you saying it's not possible because OTEC is denying that possibility,
well,
or it's physically not possible?
It's the system. I wouldn't say that OTEC says, well, I'm not going to give the information. But OTEC, I believe, and you know, we are working with OTEC, but during COVID times, OTEC was a little bit preoccupied on some of these other issues. But even during those times, though, OTEC was helping us to prepare for the grant and like that. It's not I don't think it's an arbitrary decision that they said. It's just that the system security would not be able to handle off-site inquiries to the system now. So hopefully that will change.
Right. What the TAP grant doesn't go towards that?
No, the TAP grant is basically for equipment, and the only software issue in TAP grant there is about $90,000 for the maintenance of the existing one. We are trying to squeeze out another 100,000 or 200,000 out of the TAP grant to be able to purchase a software. But right now, you know, we don't want to just say, oh, we need new software. No, let's sit down and say, do we need new software? The software that land management has is actually vendor created. It's not an off-the-shelf project. Anytime we have to do something with the maintenance, for example, to pay for the maintenance on it, we've got to make sure we understand and recognize Senator Sabina bill on sole source procurement, because the software that land management has is vendor created, it's sole source. And when we tried to run a purchase order for maintenance, we got a kickback from a DOA. There were a couple of other documents that we needed certified that it is sole source, and that's the only vendor that you can get this service from.
All right. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Joe, you've identified the special funds that you would like to have access. So basically, if we put it in the budget, I guess maybe under the miscellaneous administrative provision to allow you to be able to use the funds as needed, that would be appropriate then in the Budget Act, right?
I was thinking about that, Senator, because there's always that other part of the budget bill, the administrative provisions that may help along in that, but that's something, of course, that I'd have to clear with, the front office. I'm here for land management's budget, but, they hold the purse strings and the concepts, but, and that's why I didn't want to do it in this budget, I'd rather take it on a side note and like that. But if there's something that you include in the administrative provisions that can at least recognize or start that process, certainly we're open to it.
We sure will. We sure will, Joe. We want to make sure that we're able to assist the land management do what it needs to do. There's no sense in cutting you off and then you having to come back to the oversight chair and says, can we have access to the funds? If we can just put in the budget, you would have access. You just have to report to us what you did with the money, and then we can move on. I think that's really just accountability of it.
Yeah, you know, the language, sometimes it's authorized to appropriate is different than appropriate. So,
I think you know where I'm coming from, Joe. We'll put the right word there.
thank you.
Senator Parrish, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning to Director Borja and to Ms. Flores for being here today. Yes, when looking over your budget, it just really it shows very clearly that there is a lack of depth in your staffing patterns, and I'm glad that you're addressing that, considering that you are bringing in more people. But I think it needs to be more robust in regards to making sure that there's successional planning. You know, and looking at some of the staffing patterns, there's a planner 4s and 3s, but no 2s and 1s. And generally, you know, the way successional planning is you want to perhaps upgrade those that are in the lower ranks. So maybe the question is, do you have a robust plan in place to address the 21 potential retirees in the next couple of years? I think that's pretty concerning.
Yes, very concerning. I started out with the plan for the survey division, where we are hiring these limited term employees who have engineering backgrounds, and not only engineering backgrounds, but they're actually in college with engineering backgrounds. So that's the planning division that we have, rather the survey division, I'm sorry. And the same thing with the survey division. However, we are having a problem getting a list of qualified and eligible planner 1s, the entry-level one. The general concept we have is that we promote within, and then the lower positions that they vacate, you know, bring people in. There are 2 positions at land management that are, I'd say, on the bottom of the pay scale, but in terms of importance to the department and to records, they're right up there. And these are the data entry people. I only have 2 of them. There used to be 4. 1 retired, 1 relocated to another department, and then I have 2 left. And these 2 are the people that come in 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, get the documents that were recorded the night before, so that when the title companies and the public comes in at 9, those documents are already in the system and they can review on that. These 2 employees are at the bottom of the pay scale, but the importance of the work they do is really, really just up there. Those 2 employees specifically actually do land abstractor work, because while they are scanning that document, they're actually reading that document and analyzing grantor, grantee, municipality, because what they enter in there eventually is going to end up at revenue and tax, you know, for the real property, as well as the income tax section, checking the amount of the transaction, whether it was reported in there. But those 2 people, and my plan for those 2 people is bring them up to land abstractor 1, and then recruit for the lower divisions that we have. Even if I have to bring in LTAs for that data entry, I've already had inquiries, you know, to the office. I'm a temporary data entry. I'm down at Department of Labor in the PUA program. You know, I have the skills, you know, I'd like to come in and help land management on that. But again, for those positions, we can only hire them in limited term and only from the ARPA budget, not the fiscal year land survey revolving fund that we have. It's a little bit tougher, again, like I said, in records, because they do need that 2 years of experience. But throughout land management, that also, our cashier, you know, it's a very hard time for her to take leave and like that, because she's the only cashier, you know, that we have at land management. So we are bringing in somebody temporary, but I had to clear with DOA, can a temporary employee handle money, you know, and our cashier is not, it's not bonded, you know, that the cashier that we have now is not bonded. That's a real tough one to get.
Okay, yeah, maybe perhaps working with the GCC president to see if there could be more of a designated course to help fill these much-needed positions. What is the lead time do you need to actually get somebody in these positions?
For the temporary positions, it's pretty much 3 weeks, 2-3 weeks. For the other positions, it depends. Does DOA have a list of existing applicants for that? And some of these positions, no. But working with GCC, before you came in, Senator, I mentioned that the Chief of Cadastry, Paul Santos, took it upon himself to work with Guam Community College to set up engineering courses, surveying courses. And he went up there and taught those classes in the evenings, and he taught those classes, engineering and surveying. And then when we came down to land management, and then we had this opportunity with the Arpa budget to be flexibility to hire people for those positions in the survey division, he took from his classes. You know, these are people that he was teaching, and he told them, said, hey, apply. If you're qualified, you know, for engineering aid, we'll pick you up. Understand, though, that it's just a temporary position. So those people in that survey track, that's working very well. The other divisions, not so much. The planners and the land abstractors, not so much on that. Now, where will we get land abstractors? From the title companies, because, you know, there's no other business out there that handles that, you know, not like an engineering aid. And then, you know, so that's not a very good market to get at because we can't compare with the salaries. And of course, this is a temporary job. Why does anybody want to leave a permanent job to go to a temporary one, you know? So. But yes, we are looking at that, Senator. And, you know, for several years, the UOG always sends out this questionnaire. What are the 3 positions that you think in your position would be good to, you know, develop a curriculum, a course structure? And I always mention environmental engineer, a land surveyor, and I forget what the other one was. But those 2, I think the community needs those, surveyors and environmental engineers. And speaking of surveyors, we recently had the passing of a senior surveyor. And that senior surveyor just happens to have 50 maps pending over at land management. So what's the status of those maps? You know, if the certified signature is not on there, that's basically scratch paper, if I might say. My apologies.
My deepest condolences to the family. So in regards to, the office space rental, I know there's you were talking about earlier about the ability to build on a property that was designated for Department of Land Management because of the historic remains that were found. Are there other properties available to Department of Land Management that they could potentially build their new home?
Not right off the bat, and not that doesn't belong to another agency. So no, I'd have to, you know, really think about that if there's any other properties that land management can build. Yeah. Not openly and not openly available. Like I said, maybe it belongs to another agency that having used it. For example, the former DVR site up there by Kmart. There's actually a good building in there. It's a nice big piece of property. Of course, there's no building on it, but can land management build on that? I guess with legislative authorization, because that land was designated for DISIT, I believe. Mm-hmm. But there might be, but right off the bat, Senator, I can't think of any right now.
Okay, and is that an option, you know, in the case that you can't build on this property because the historic remains?
I think what needs to be done really is, I think you need to take a look at the legislation and see. For example, that bill says, build the land management, build your building on Chamorro Land Trust property. Well, you know, what's in it for Chamorro Land Trust? They're the landowners. I don't know why it was done like that. So I think you basically have to go back to the enabling legislation, the foundation, and take a look at it and see if you can, because that enabling legislation, I think, specifically said that lot number. You know, it didn't say build your building where it's feasible. I think it did say lot 1, block 23, lot 18, or something like that. It was specific where to build it.
Okay, so that's something perhaps we could take a look at. The other thing, so one thing I noticed about your budget, it's very frugal. you basically are using money that's coming from your special funds, very little from the general fund. And it's kind of promising to hear that you're tracking higher, and that could potentially cover any cost incurred from hiring more people, which you desperately need. The other thing I think is interesting is you are also responsible for assisting BSP for the development of the Seashore Reserve Plan. Where are you on the status of that? And yeah, how would you enforce something if, if there are any projects that are affecting the seashore? Are there anything that, as an entity you can do to kind of put things aside if there is potential harm to the seashore?
Well, we do have the Guam Territorial Seizure Protection Commission, GSPC, I think as they're called now, which is the same people as the Guam Land Use Commission. And of course, on these applications or projects that come in, Coastal Zone Management under BSP is really the one that takes the lead on that. In terms of enforcement, that would be DPW. But with the recent interest on submerged lands, that may have to be sorted out, on those submerged lands issue. The only, well, I shouldn't say the only, but one of the major things we're doing relative to the seashore is land management is just about finished with its Hagatna Seawall survey. And this is a survey from the coffee slot area across the old city bank all the way down to, I think it's called the Lupang Condos, I believe, down at the end there. So we're doing a survey there, and I believe BSP has a grant to construct a seawall there to protect the shore from erosion in that area. Other than that, Senator, I don't really know. I know that the forest legacy plan, because really on Guam, I believe everything is coastal zone. It's such a small place that they do have input on that. But on the overall project or addressing the Guam Seizure Plan, we don't do that on our own. We work with BSP and now with Coastal Zone Management. And
is there a status on that?
Well, I don't know that, Senator. I wouldn't presume to answer on behalf of Coastal Zone Management. I know these things really are, they're moving, I wouldn't say they're moving targets, but these are moving pieces now, in addition to the Forest Legacy Act, the Seashore Protection Plan. Yeah.
Okay, just for clarification, how many LTAs did you hire using the ARPA funds?
6, huh? 9. We hired a teleprocessing network coordinator, a planner 1, land abstractor 1 who hasn't come on board yet, 2 CSR, customer service representative, and 4 engineering aides.
Okay. And so the remainder was used on equipment?
I'm sorry?
The remainder of the ARPA funds was used for equipment?
Yeah, we're trying to recruit for planner 2, 2 planner 2s, a planner 1, engineering aid 3, and an engineering aid 2.
Okay, well, thank you for that, and appreciate your responses and your presentation today.
Actually, we encourage these people to apply during the regular system, but then they come back and the DOA says, I'm sorry, we don't have a list for these people, applicants on this. And we request that it be opened up. In the meantime, we can hire under the LTA and the, what's the other one? 120 days and 360 days. But these people are coming in not to get trained, but to immediately provide help to the department because of their background. For example, customer service rep, one of the customer service rep we picked up was actually a waiter in a restaurant, but he has great customer service skills being a waiter, people complain and he tries to make them feel good, and he turned out very, very good employee, very, very good employee.
Okay, well, thank you for your responses and for the work you've done. This is Masi.
Thank you, Senator Paris. Senator Brown, do you have any questions for the panel?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I actually have a combination of questions. Senator Tello apologizes she's not here today. she was a bit under the weather, but she did provide me the questions. And I also see you responded to a letter that she recently sent to you, and probably when we get to that, we can maybe elaborate further on the questions and your responses, just for the edification of the public. With regards to positions, I understand there were 6 positions that were requested for FY22 that amounted to about $260,469. And we just wanted to inquire, I know we've been going back and forth with regards to your positions at land management, but have these positions been filled that were requested last budget year?
This one.
I wrote on the side. That's the one that I wrote.
This one.
I wrote on the side, but it's
Okay, give us a minute here. We have so many papers, and some of them have initials on it.
I gave it to you this morning like that.
Personnel, should be the personnel budget. It's the same.
There. Oh no. Anyhow, use that.
Yeah.
The yellow ones are.
Yeah, these are the ones that I have here that were from the positions requested, and there were 6.
Okay.
Administrative assistant, completed. Program coordinator 4, pending. Administrative assistant for land planning due to a retirement, completed. And in the land survey division, 3 positions, 1 completed, engineering technician, and 2 pending, engineering aid 3 and engineering aid 2. And some of these positions do not exist, or list of applicants. Like for the engineering aid, they had to re-announce it to get people coming in. So yes, out of the 6 rather, 3 have been filled and 3 are pending.
Okay, so you anticipate perhaps this upcoming fiscal year, you'll be able to hire those pending positions?
Like I mentioned earlier, Senator, in the last several months, we've kind of like had a lot of personnel shifts in the department,
Sure.
and we're going to have to look back on it to see if we can hire them at the one we wanted in the beginning, or to see if we can hopefully reprogram some of the money. For example, in order for us to hire a position that was retired from, we had to take money from another position. I believe one of the 6 positions here to fill, to get the money.
Would you be able to, though, let's say you are fortunate and you're actually able to fill those remaining 3 positions, would you be able to accommodate their compensation under your existing budget? As you mentioned in the past, you've had to move money around to accommodate the positions that you're able to hire on. And will you be able to do that? Because you have a consistent, which again, I appreciate. Certainly, Joe, you were conservative last year and you're also conservative this year with regards to your budget requests, but would you be able to fulfill hiring those remaining positions?
I think we will. Our holdback on this might be that there is no list of eligible applicants on this, and land DOA would have to announce that list and wait for the time, and we're getting towards the end of fiscal year. I think money-wise, I think we will be able to, time-wise, and position availability of a list of qualified applicants, I don't know.
Is it just because, again, I mean, the type of work that's being done is not, just anybody off the street, so to speak, can come and provide these certain specialized services that you provide at land management? Is that the main reason why, is having people that have any experience or background? You mentioned sometimes you might have to get, hopefully, people from the title company that actually have experience in doing this type of land work, but is that your main challenge?
Well, it's for these, for example, for the survey division, it would be from engineering companies on that. The salary disparity between
Sure.
the private and the government, it just doesn't, I mean, we lose people with engineering backgrounds to cashiers at the exchange. They pay like $17 an hour, and we pay $12 here at the engineering aid, plus they have all those benefits. So we've lost a couple of employees like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, those are things in key specialized positions probably in the government we need to look at that are critical, because it's definitely needed. I mean, it's not a lot we can do if the issues in land titles and the things that are needed to construct and build on are not addressed, and the longer it delays, the the more challenging it is all around, as I know you're very familiar with. I'll just try and go over the staffing positions so we can move on to other things.
Sure.
There were 4 vacant positions that were shown in the 2021 staffing pattern. And these positions were vacant for that year and of course, were unbudgeted, and I'm sure that was probably related to the pandemic. But of those 4 positions that were unbudgeted in 2021, they've remained vacant and have become budgeted positions for they were budgeted in FY 2022. And those positions are, one is the Planner 4, that was upgraded from recruitment from a Planner 3 position and vacated. And then you had an Engineering Aid 3, an Engineering Aid, and 2 Engineering Aid 2s. So have these positions been filled? These 4 remain that were vacant last year?
Yes, from within departmental promotions, yes.
Okay, so all 4 of those have been filled. And then
What were the other 2 positions, Senator? I know the engineering.
one was the Planner 4, which was upgraded from a Planner 3 position. And then you had 1 Engineering Aid 3, and then 2 Engineering Aid 2s.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes
all
to
4
all.
have since, okay. I know you mentioned earlier about the challenges with regards to employees are on active duty. How are you able to address that if you have your employees that are deployed? How many employees do you have that have been deployed this past year that work at land management?
Senator, those deployments were, what year for that?
They've been deployed, some are deployed for
No,
years? What?
we don't have any employees
don't?
personally deployed. That obligation was like 2008.
So you currently don't have any that are
No,
deployed
we don't
right
have
now that
anybody
are at that- Okay,
deployed.
well, that's good. That
And our
doesn't impact
retirement
your-
contributions are up to date for the existing employees we have.
Okay, it doesn't impact your operations. Well, that's good. You also received a grant. I know you were talking a little earlier with regards to updating your IT network from Department of Interior for $309,828 for your technical funding, and that expires next year in September of 2023. Do you have a status on what a status update on that particular grant?
In terms of the money-wise, out of the 309,000, 164,000 is left to be expended, and that's for the cabling,
Okay.
the maintenance of the land web, and the high-performance server, which is a storage on it. In that amount, though, is about $6,000 that we can reprogram, $6,000 for computer racks. We don't really need those now that we found other racks. So we have about $9,000 that we can reprogram out of that $309,000 grant.
Okay, so between now and the deadline of next September, you think you'd be able to address what needs to be done for
I
full
think it's
implementation of the funds?
2023, October. Yeah, I think the deadline to expend this, I will
Yeah,
expend
next
that
year.
way before that.
Okay, well, that's good news. Are you anticipating, I guess, a carryover of any funds you've had this past fiscal year into 2023?
Well, we're going to have a lapse or so. Yeah, we're probably going to have a lapse, and then we have the reserves that we're looking at.
Okay, and then with regards to your DLM survey and infrastructure fund, how has that been for this past fiscal year?
That's the land
in terms
survey
of your
revolving fund.
collections?
Yeah, that's our main source. That's the land survey revolving fund. That's where we get the amount to spend from that.
And is that tracking well from this past fiscal year?
It's actually tracking at maybe 300,000, hopefully to 500,000 more than last year.
Well, that's good news, considering some of the financial challenges we're heading into. It's good to hear that.
And we owe actually, senators, credit the title companies and the banks for the economic activity on land sales, land mortgages, and like that, you know. So they're the ones that actually generate it, you know, and give it to land management, to the government to use.
Well, that's good news. I mean, that's a substantial amount for you guys. Just to get back to the letter that was sent in June 6th, I appreciate certainly you were very expeditious in responding, but Mr. Chair, if I could just inquire the questions, and then if Mr. Borja can just respond, just for the public information, because I know this has been, and it was discussed in questions a little earlier from my colleagues with regards to the construction of the land management building. I know that issue has been hovering around for quite a number of years, but I guess just for informational purposes, if I can just ask the questions Senator Tello had relayed to you. Her first question was, please explain the local fund deposit source and the origin of $171,300. Is the amount of $1,566,958.20 the entire amount received from the FEMA Hazardous Mitigation Grant Program? And then she goes on to list the project number to construct a new DLM building in Hagatna.
Before I start on that, Senator, thank you for that. I'd just like a correction on the date pursuant to your letter of, this is addressed to Senator Telotaigo, 21022, it should be 2022.
Okay, no
Yeah.
problem.
Anyway, in response to number one there, the $171,300 was appropriated from the general fund in 2008, but never expended, because construction of the new Department of Land Management building was never started. $1,566,958.20 is the entire amount received from the FEMA Hazard Mitigation Grant Program awarded under project number HMGPDR 1446 to construct a new land management building. Now, these amounts from our land management books, we send a monthly report to the legislature on those accounts. Number two, has the amount been put in any investment approved for the retirement fund as provided by law? No. So the answer to number two is no. Number three, total expenditures amounting to $984,000 has been spent from the fund. Please confirm that drawdowns and expenses comply in accordance with the requirements of law and are invested towards the construction of a new building. The $984,346 was spent for the design of the building. However, construction of the new building was never materialized. So over at Land Management, we have this stack of big, beautiful plans that we spent $984,000, $346, but will probably not be used because they are outdated. Number four, please explain a deposit of $3,747,398 made to the account and transferred out 4 years later. This one I really can't answer because this one happened in FY 2011, but the amount deposited in was more than the grant. In fiscal year 2011, it was discovered that accounting had taken out the $3,747,398 to cover shortfall for the land survey revolving funds. Land Management requested to have that amount put back into the DLM Building Construction Fund so that Land Management can continue the work to build a new land management building. Number five, what is the status of the construction of the new land management building and Land Management's plans to move the development forward? I'd just like to say that first off, the property designated for the land management building belongs to the Chamorro Land Trust. They actually have title to that. The law says, however, land management build a building on the property. So that's what I meant about possibly having to review the enabling legislation. The plans are, the status is on hold. The landowner, the Chamorro Land Trust Commission, has been informed of the discovery of human remains on the property. I think this was back in 2009. I believe after the CLTC reviews the information that we gave them, it is up to them to decide a way forward. Legislative review of the enabling legislation has to be reviewed. And then the last part of the second page of the letter, there are the balances from Land Management's books. As you can see, in 2019 there were amounts, and then in 2020 there were a lot of it was zeroed out. But Senators, a lot of these took place before me and even before Jean came on board here. So you know, this is something definitely that audited.
On the back where you had the listing, Joe, of the amounts here on the bottom, it says permit. I assume TR transferred to GF from January 9th of 2018. Is that the 591,000?
Right. That's the 591,450. It was a permanent transfer to the general fund made on January 9, 2018. That's according to DOA.
And that's not funds you ever anticipate to get back? On a whim and a prayer, maybe? One other thing with regards, are you looking at, and I know, of course, we have the federal infrastructure bill that was passed, and Guam has a certain $100 million plus share out of that. Is that anything you might be looking at to see if there's any funds that could be obtained by that for the building of this long-awaited, long-desired building? Because, of course, you and a number of other government agencies obviously have, substantial amounts every year that are being paid out in rental, and aside from that moment in time, there's no long-term benefit to our taxpayers with the continued rental of facilities on what we recognize and acknowledge are going to be long-term services.
And that was the whole
that are
idea
going
of
to
the
be provided
grant.
to our public.
That was the whole idea of that building grant, but 1.4, or what was the amount? A couple of $1 million now to build a building. The plans for the building down in Hagatna was $1 million a floor at one time. Now
Right.
it's more than double probably construction costs on that. So I don't know that if that will happen. And again, land management is really not a developer. We really don't have anybody in the building that can, process the building of the building and to put it together, along with financing, because it's not just building, it's the financing mechanism. You've seen Senator Tello Taitui's questions about investments. I don't even think we're at that point where we're able to invest the money because of the amount needed on there.
So as far as you know, are you even looking to inquire if it's possible with the administration to look at any funds for the construction of the building at all?
No,
Or you're looking at
I
everything
haven't
at a
made any
standstill?
inquiries to the administration for that. I feel that situation with the enabling legislation has to be cleared up for. Although land management spends about $650,000 a year on rent, and
but over a period of time, my goodness, we could have long built a building. Same situation in the
Oh, yeah.
legislature. Many years we rented the building down the street, and took this and historic preservation to finally get this particular building restored. I mean, we had the land available, the building facility, and yet this sat in squalor for like almost 25 years. So I think that's something certainly to be looked at, because just based on your appropriation you're receiving on your rental, that could be a substantial payment towards the loan to actually build a building and have permanent structure that, including the vault, I'm sure, that you need for your security, for your maps, and all the infrastructure that you're doing for your IT, having that all installed in your own facility that's designed to meet the needs of your employees and the public would be.
And you see that in that probably the enabling legislation, there are other agencies that need thing. When the building was going to be built down there at 6 stories, land management could only fill 2 floors.
Right.
So we were looking for
Other
paying tenants for
agencies,
the other
right.
4, but.
If I can just quickly go back, and then I'll wrap up, Mr. Chair, on the original $1.5 million from FEMA, what is the status of those funds? Obviously, the building has never been built. Has it expired? Did it evaporate? What happened to the $1.5 million? Do you know?
Maybe I'll let Jean answer that in terms of the bank balance and the book balance.
Because, I mean, we're talking like 14 years ago already, going on 15 years ago.
You can tell I haven't used a speaker. Anyhow, my balance that I have, including that permanent transfer, is $196,570. That's just based on what I know, and it's included in that letter. The AS400 balance, however, is showing 0 at this point. If I go into the AS400 and I try to find out what's happening with the DLM building construction, they've been zeroed out since 2020, September 30. Then there's another account. The bank balance is down to $2,947. I have tried asking for the details of that from accounting, but they said to follow the expenditures, which is listed as $984,000, and I subtracted that, but there's still a big balance there.
Well, this is kind of strange. I mean,
Yes.
the numbers should add up, and then I'm just assuming, I mean, if you received a federal grant, there would have to be an accounting to the federal government of how those funds were expended, right?
Yes.
We don't want them knocking on our door and saying, hey,
Yes. But we will work with them. Mr. Burr
you
says
didn't
we'll-
comply and you owe us, 1.5 million plus interest. I mean, that's a big question mark.
We will work with accounting.
Well, I'm sure we just need to follow up on it because,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, the building wasn't built. You would think the 1.5 would still be sitting there, but it's not. And even if you're down to 196,000, that's not a lot either compared to the original 1.5 million. Okay, well, I think that leaves a big question mark that we need to go back and look, and I think we should get us. Mr. Director, do you look at a reasonable time frame we could get at least the committee an update on any answers to these questions of what happened to this 1.5 million in FEMA grant funding?
We'll try our best efforts. We've already sent an inquiry to DOA, I think that's the controller on it. When they respond, I'm not sure, but I think it's going to need several eyes to look at it.
They're in the same building, right?
Yeah. I'm sorry?
They're in your same building, right?
Yes.
You can always go up and knock on the door and.
We'll make an appointment.
Well, I just think in all fairness, I mean, I understand these things happened over a period, we're talking 14 years over a period of time that doesn't cover your tenure, but, the record should be there, particularly because it is federal funding, and we should have a way of accounting for it. But I think we'll keep that on our list of issues. But thank you very much for responding to my questions. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you,
Chairman.
Senator.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Joe, maybe your office can communicate with FEMA and find out what happened. That's 14 years ago. FEMA has a record of everything, and they'll know if they just grabbed it back, the money.
It's 14 years ago, but I think I was the director back then. I think when we demolished the building and signed that grant, probably. So I'm interested also.
All right. That being said, the committee will conclude the budget hearing with the Department of Land Management. Joe, please provide us the letters that we would need from you. As much as I know you're going to be working with Department Administration, but please provide us the information we need to make the adjustment and state the basic verbiage that we're going to need in the appropriation or miscellaneous or administrative appropriation section, Joe. I think you know where I'm coming from, Joe, on this one. I want to make sure we're able to take care of the needs of land management. And I would ask that as soon as you get it to us, because we'll be moving along on the budget. The committee will continue to receive testimony. Please address your written testimony to the Committee on General Government Operations, Appropriations and Housing and submit it via email to Senator Joe S. Augustin at gmail.com or to my office located at Rand Care Building, 2nd floor, Suite 3, 761 Marine Corps Drive, Tamuning, Guam. Since Marcy for attendance today, Mr. Bora and your staff, and participating in today's hearing. And for those at home, thank you for watching. The budget hearing on Bill 276-36 relative to the Department of Land Management is duly heard and is now adjourned at, it is 10:25. Please be safe and have a nice day.